Susan B. Anthony as a leader. Susan B. Anthony was born February 15, 1820. She is originally from Adams, Massachusetts, where she was brought up in a Quaker family with activist traditions. In 1845, her family moved to Rochester, New York due to difficult times financially. It was in Rochester that her revolutionary career began. Susan B. Anthony had the traits of a leader. She was known as aggressive but compassionate. She had a keen mind and a great ability to inspire. However, her weakness was that she was a woman in a man's world. It was this weakness she spent her life fighting. Her activist lifestyle started with the abolition of slavery. Anti-slavery meetings were held in her home where she was active in participation. In 1856, she became a paid agent for the American Anti-Slavery Society, handing out leaflets. In 1861, she organized a speaking campaign against slavery that started in Buffalo and finished in Albany. It was during this campaign Anthony really gained followers. She also gained referent and expert power as a leader. While supporting abolition, she also campaigned for temperance. Growing up as a Quaker, she saw liquor as sinful. She joined the Daughters of Temperance, a group advocating for stronger liquor laws, and in 1848 she made her first public speech at a dinner held by the Daughters of Temperance. 1 year later, she was elected president of the Rochester branch, getting her first position in which she gained legitimate power. It was 1853 when she went to the state legislature with a petition to limit the sale of alcohol with 28,000 signatures. The state legislature rejected the petition because mostly women and children signed it. It was this event that caused Anthony to focus on women's suffrage. She believed without the right to vote, women would never be able to influence public affairs. Susan B. Anthony attended her first women's rights convention in 1852. It is here she met Elizabeth Cady Stanton, another women's rights activist. Together, these two would thrive in leading the women's suffrage movement. They founded the American Equal Rights Association and began publishing a newspaper called The Revolution. The aim was to establish justice for all. From 1869 to 1906, her determination showed as she appeared before Congress every year asking for the passage of a suffrage amendment. To keep her influence alive, she began traveling the U.S. and giving speeches. She would make 75 to 100 speeches each year, making her a famous speaker throughout the United States. The ideas behind these speeches were to influence her followers and create a connection to increase motivation in fighting for women's suffrage. In 1892, Anthony became the president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association. In 1872, Susan B. Anthony, her three sisters, and a group of other women demanded to be registered to vote in the presidential election. On November 5th, they cast their ballots and voted for every Republican on the ticket. Days later, she was arrested and tried in Albany, where the judge forced the jury to a guilty verdict. These women were the first women to vote, although illegally. Unfortunately, Anthony would never be able to vote legally as the 19th Amendment was enacted in 1920, 14 years after her death. Susan B. Anthony was a very influential leader for her time. She was without a doubt a transformational leader. She was a role model for so many women during that time, and she influenced and inspired them to stand up for their rights. She listened to followers and spoke to followers about an equal future where women have a say in public affairs. Anthony disregarded her own self-interest and that she could have went to jail for standing up and voting in 1872. Anthony was also an ideological leader. Her fight for women's suffrage was based on her own internal ideology. With that, she created a vision and goals for the women's suffrage movement. Anthony had gained the experience needed to develop expert leader cognition through her time as an abolitionist and activist with temperance. She understood the situations, her followers, and herself. She knew that women needed the legal right to vote, otherwise they would always be seen as inferior to men. Lastly, she had the human and conceptual skills to create a large following for her beliefs. She knew how to work with people. She empowered women to stand up for the right to vote. She knew how to deal with Congress and men while fighting for her rights. She was not afraid, and she stood up for her beliefs, and she led other women to do the same. Susan B. Anthony's legacy lives on today. Her actions and words have and still do inspire women all over to fight for their rights. The place you can see her legacy live on the most is in Rochester, New York. The prestigious University of Rochester gives out a Susan B. Anthony Legacy Award Scholarship and Prize, all awarded to women who show exemplary leadership and academic leadership. I am from Rochester, New York. Her fight and her legacy hit home to me. I have been to her grave and I have been to her house, which is now a museum. It is extremely awe inspiring. Every year, women will visit her grave after they voted in elections and post their stickers on there to thank her for her legacy. As a woman, I am thankful for her determined efforts to make women equal with men.